It's The Real News. I'm Aaron Mete. This is a bonus part of a recent debate that I hosted here on The Real News between Max Blumenthal and Mary Ellsberg about the turmoil in Nicaragua. The initial recording was very long, so for broadcast, we edited it down to make it at a more reasonable length. And after it was published, Mary Ellsberg contacted us and pointed out that a section of hers was removed that she felt was important. And it's about her questioning a forensic death toll study that was done that disputed claims that most of the deaths in Nicaragua were on the opposition side. This report claimed that actually the death toll was more even between government supporters and opposition members. So Mary Ellsberg, in this section that we are now publishing now, talks about her criticism of that report.
I had already gone through the Inter-American Human Rights Commission's paper, the first report, which was very, very detailed. And I already told you a little bit about it. They had come up with 100, almost 200 people in the first report. And then in their most recent report, they talk about 317 people who have been killed during this period as a result of the protest. So it could be on either side. They have received documents from the government and they have included them. So the idea that they ignore it and don't put them in is just not true. And in my article, I actually cite the pieces where they recognize what the government is, information the government has given them. But a few days ago, a paper came out by somebody named Enrique Hendricks that everybody is talking about it as a forensic document. I don't know. I think the word forensic is being used very loosely. What he did was take a bunch of names, lists of names from two of the Nicaraguan NGOs that collected data on the deaths, and then the IACHR, which is not based on the other two, as people continue to say. In fact, there are complaints that were collected in CENI that are not in the IHCHR list because the family didn't want to report it or report a complaint. So these are actual formal complaints that have been lodged by family members or by individuals who have been harmed. So I went through it all. Basically, his point is that he has made his own sort of organization of the different people who've been killed and has taken a group that he says were killed by the opposition, and they were Sandinistas. He says there are 60 of those, so about a fifth of the murders are by the opposition. About another fifth are people who are protesting who were murdered, presumably by the government or by parapolice. There's another 16% or 46 deaths of people who were bystanders, and people keep talking about people who are just walking around or something, and another group of 17% of deaths that are unrelated to the protests. So, and so he takes all of those out and basically says that there are 119 deaths from this list, and half of them are people who are killed by the opposition. Okay, that's the big story, and that's what everybody's been hearing thus far. So I now have it, and I'm gonna just open up my computer so I can look at it a little better. So I just went down the list, and what he does is that he classifies them himself as to how he thinks they should be considered and gives the information he has, and then he puts which report they're in, and then at the bottom, in the side, he gives the media or where he got his information. Now, again, this is not forensic in the sense that he didn't speak to anybody. He didn't do any independent investigation. He basically just reorganized it and went back over all the media and tried to figure out in his own mind what had happened, okay? So what I found in the first 14, and I'm happy to send these to you, Max, and to anybody else, in the first 14, I found 10 errors. And this was either because the links were not, the links that supposedly were substantiating the identification, the classification, were wrong or dead or dealt with the wrong person, or they were incomplete. So if I looked and I found more media talk, so basically he would use the media around the bystanders, one that said, oh yeah, he was just nearby coming home, we don't know what happened. But there's another one that says that on his Facebook, he said, todo por la patria with the blue and white flag on it, and all of his friends says that he was a protester. So there's that, and then finally he actually links to some data, some reports where it actually says the opposite. So in the first whole long list of people who are killed by snipers that he says are not related to, they're not at all related to the protest, what happened there, these are all people who were standing near the protest, either in Ciudad Sandino or in Uni. They may or may not have been there intentionally to participate, but they were killed by the same snipers. And remember, these snipers were from far away and were shooting to kill individuals that were unknown. And that's part of the terror of this. And the whole idea was to terrify people to not participate in marches or in the protests, because people were simply getting mowed down just for being there.